The concept of trying to redate all your exes I think is stupid. I would not feed my ex a dog bone. What are you talking about? Like, what? But I loved Malachi. Oh my god, I'm getting like butterflies in my chest. Like, hey Blessed fam, it's your girl Bella. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my February wrap up, wrapping up the 9 books that I read in February. So February was an okay reading month. I guess if I look at my average Goodreads rating, it actually was a better reading month than January. And I would second that. I would agree with that because January was really rough for me. I got into a reading slump. But I only read 9 books this month. I traveled a little bit and I was just busy with other things. So I didn't read a ton of books, but let me give you all my stats. So in total I read 9 books. I had an average rating of 3.6 stars. 5 books were fiction, 4 were nonfiction. I read a total of 2,139 pages with an average of 277 pages per book. And I had 3 physical books, 2 audiobooks, and I had 3 physical books, 4 audiobooks, and 2 ebooks. So as I mentioned, I had almost an equal amount of fiction and nonfiction, which for me is not as normal. Like, I typically read more fiction than nonfiction. Yeah, I think the fact that I had more nonfiction is part of why my average rating was higher this month, because a lot of the nonfiction that I read was really good. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first book I read this month was The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I DNF'd this book at about 6%. This is a fiction adult fantasy book, and I actually was reading this for my book club, and I picked the book. I picked the book and I DNF'd it. I DNF'd this book. Okay, first, this book is about like these 6 different people who go to like some academy because they all have like powers, like they're like the best magicians or something like that. I don't know exactly. I couldn't even tell you the basis because I DNF'd it at like 25 pages. I DNF'd the book because I kept falling asleep while reading it. Like, I could not keep my eyes open. Also, I recently read Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake in January, and that book put me into a reading slump. So reading another book from her is kind of like daunting. I picked this book for my book club before I had read that book. Otherwise, I would not have picked it. But her writing is like very wordy. There's like lots of words on each page. And for me, it's just kind of like overwhelming. I don't really like her writing style. I did request a audiobook of The Atlas 6, which I'm on hold for. I think I have like 4 more weeks till I get it. So I do still want to read this book. It's one of like it's one of my 23 books that I said I would, I mentioned this book in my 23 books I must read in 2023, so I still do want to read the book and understand why people like it. But I will say, like, first time trying to read it, I did DNF it because I just couldn't really get into it. The next book I read was Gangland 3 by Leo Sullivan and Portia Sterling. I gave this book 4 stars, and it's a fiction, urban fiction. It is a fiction urban book. It is the 3rd book in a 3-book series, and I read this via ebook. I gave this book 4 stars, as I mentioned. This book follows our main character, Star. She grows up in the south side of Chicago. She is tagged into a gang that she does not want to join, and she's trying to pretty much balance the fact that she's in a gang that she does not want to be in, along with the fact that she's trying to get into college. She has aspirations of, making more of herself and making it out of the hood. She has a grandma that she takes care of, her younger sister. There's just a lot of moving pieces in this book. This is the 3rd and final book in the series, so I don't want to say like anything beyond what I've already mentioned because I don't want to spoil book 2 and 3. I gave book 1 a 4-star, book 2 a 5-star, and book 3 a 4-star. I think book 2 was the strongest just because it like really elicited emotions from me. Like, I actually cried reading book 2. I think my number 1 con with book 3, and I know this is kind of unfair to say, was just that there are so many typos. I'm pretty sure these books are independently published, so I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's too many typos. Like, I always try to have more grace with books that are not traditionally published, but at the same time, it was like there were so many to the point that it was like overwhelming, and it was more than what was in book 1 and 2. So I was kind of like, and then also I think book 3 just had a lot going on, like a lot was going on. But I think the way it ended was realistic. There are some parts of this book that were so sad, but I think it was very realistic. I think that it ended in the way that it should have, even though some parts were literally heartbreaking. And if you like urban novels, I would definitely recommend this series. I think it's really, really good. If you're a fan of The Coldest Winter Ever, which is my favorite book of all time, I think you should definitely read this one. And yeah, give it a try if it's something that interests you. If you're interested in like urban literature, gang life, those sorts of things, I would recommend this. A good hood book. The next book I read was Around the Way Girl by Taraji P. Henson. I gave this 4 stars, and it is a nonfiction memoir written and read by the author. So I listened to this on audio. This book is just about Taraji P. Henson. She's a very prominent Black actress. It's about her life growing up, how she got into acting. I thought it was fine. It was like a fun experience reading. It wasn't anything like that knocked me off my feet. Like, I read Viola Davis's memoir and I thought that was so good. Like, it was a 5 out of 5 for me. This was like a 4 out of 5. It was still good. I think it wasn't necessarily missing anything, because I think it's someone's life, so it's hard to say like, oh, it's missing something. Like, how can I tell her what's missing out of her life? But I think the book could have maybe went like a little bit deeper, got a little bit more gritty. But I still enjoyed it, and I listened to it while I was working, so it was fine. The next book is The 12-Week Year by Brian P. Moran. I gave this book 3 stars. It is a nonfiction business productivity book, and I listened to this via audio. So this book is about the 12-week year and how you can condense your year, your 12-month year, into 4 12-week periods in order to achieve your goals faster. One of the premises of this book is that when we think about our goals in a 12-month span, it's easy to be like, okay, it's January, we can worry about it later. It's February, let's worry about it later. It's March, let's worry about it later. Like, it's easier to push your goals off when you have 12 weeks or when you have 12 months. But if you have 12 weeks, you're more likely to start right away because it's a smaller period of time. And it's just talking about that, I guess, like business structure and how you can do that with, of course, business goals, but also personal goals and different things that you want to accomplish. I thought this book was good. I thought it was a very neat concept. It's definitely a book that I would need to reread because I feel like I wasn't grasping everything my first time listening to it. And it's a book that I would definitely recommend, especially via audio, because I'm an audiobook listener when it comes to self-development and nonfiction. In nonfiction, period, I'm always audiobook. But I think it was good. I just think I need to listen to it again. And I've just read some self-development that I think is a little bit stronger than this one, but I still think that this was a good book. The next book, and actually my best book of the month, was Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I gave this 5 stars. This is a nonfiction business entrepreneurship book that I also listened to via audio. This book is about marketing your business and how to pretty much center your business around your client or your customer versus doing it around yourself. That way the customer or the client can see themselves in your product and or in your service and be more inclined to shop with you or whatever it is that you're trying to, I guess, sell as a business owner. I like this book a lot. It was recommended to me, and I think this book was really strong. It's another book that I feel like I need to reread right away, and I actually want to have a physical copy of this book, which says a lot for me when it comes to any sort of like self-development business book. If I want to own it, that says a lot. I thought this book was very strong. There are lots of good examples of different companies and how they like change their business model and how the before and afters of before they're doing the business model that's implemented in this book versus after. And I just thought it was really powerful. I think if you have a business or even a YouTube channel and you're trying to market it to people and get people to buy into your product or your service, I think this is a book that you absolutely have to read, and I would definitely recommend it widely, whether you're into nonfiction or not. I just think this book was a gem. Me and my books. Okay. The next book, and my worst book of the month, X's and O's by Amy Leah. I don't know if I put this in I think I put this in my most anticipated books of 2023, which is not a big deal. Like, most anticipated does not mean that I think it's going to get a 5 star. It just means I'm anticipating it and I want to read it this year. Like, I'm looking forward to it. It doesn't mean I'm going to love it, because I've never even read from this author until this book. So I give this book 2 stars, and it was one of my so I don't know why I'm laughing. It is a fiction contemporary romance, and it's one of my only physical books that I read this month. So this book is about our main character. I don't remember her name, some basic girl. And she is just a romance lover. So she's a book talker or bookstagrammer, one of the two. And so she has her own little like following. She always goes on live and talks about books and tropes that she loves and things like that. And she's like 30 years old. She was engaged, but her engagement got called off by the guy. And she embarks upon this project, I guess this quest to get a man before some event that she has to go to. And the way she plans on getting a man is by... This is so stupid. She plans on getting a man by going through all of her exes and trying to date all of them all over again, with the exception of her ex-fiance. And the tropes in this book are forced proximity and, I guess, roommate to lover, because her and her roommate end up being together. That is not a spoiler by any means. Like, you know that as soon as they become roommates, you know what's going to happen. Like, a guy and a girl are roommates in a romance, they're going to get together, duh. But it's like she's blind to the fact that her roommate likes her. Which, I mean, doesn't make it super apparent either, to be honest. And I just thought this book was really stupid. I thought this book was stupid. The concept of trying to redate all of your exes. Yo, I cannot wait till I move. It is so loud. The concept of trying to redate all of your exes, I think, is stupid. I would not feed my ex a dog bone. What are you talking about? Like, what? And so I thought that was stupid. This book has like trigger warnings of like, oh, the fiance calling her crazy and gaslighting and things like that. I guess there is kind of gaslighting, but let's be 100% honest. This girl is crazy. Like, if you read this book, this girl is nuts. She's nuts. Like, I give this book 2 stars, but I didn't hate reading it. Like, it was just so stupid that I was like, okay. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read in my life, but I'm being nasty. I'm sorry, but this book was a joke. Like, no. The next book I read was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. I gave this 5 stars. It's a nonfiction self-help psychology book that I listened to via audio. It's only 128 pages, so if you want to read this physically, you can do that as well. This is recommended by my dad. So every other week, me and my family have like a little family FaceTime call because I do live in Charlotte. The rest of my family lives in Ohio, so that we can, all stay in touch or whatever. And everyone in my family's been getting into reading recently, which I absolutely love. And so my dad told us that this is a book that he's reread many times in his life, and he recommends to all of us. So I listened to it, and this book is so amazing. Definitely a book that I also plan on purchasing and owning a copy of. I like this book because it just talks about the power of positive thinking, about how there's life and death in the tongue and the things we say and the things that we think, how powerful they are and how they can really change and mend situations. And I absolutely loved it. A lot of the stuff in this book are things that, if you're aware of like positive thinking, you probably have already heard, but it's also very good to remind yourself of. Like, I'm someone who's very aware of like how our thoughts and our words influence our lives, but even I can forget that sometimes in certain situations. And reading this book reminded me of just how important those things were in terms of like my personal goals, my relationship goals, spiritual, all the above, financial, everything. And I also like that this author is a Christian, so he wasn't like shoving the Bible down your throat by any means. If you're not a Christian, I would still recommend this book. But I personally like when things are being tied back to the Bible, the Word of God, all of that. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so good. And one thing that he says every single morning that my parents have started doing, that I'm going to start doing too, is every morning he says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it," which, it's from the Bible. And then my mom, on top of that, she'll say that, but she'll add on, "Today I'm going to be happy and accomplish blank because the Lord has given me the strength to do so." And so that's something that he talks about in the book, about how he starts his day by saying that. And I feel like just starting your day saying that, it just kind of moves a trajectory. Like, if I tell myself I'm going to have a good day today, who can honestly stop me? And he says that too. Like, he says how every single day he tells himself this, and he's never had a bad day. And it's not because his days are necessarily all flowers and rainbows and sunshine. It's because he has convinced himself and trained his mind that no matter what happens, I'm going to have a great day today. And I absolutely love this. It's something that I've been implementing into my life as well, and I just think it's really amazing. So I love this book. Would broadly recommend if you're looking for a book about positive thinking and how our thoughts and our words really influence our everyday life. The next book I read, and I have a copy of it. Where is she? Oh, she's across the room. I'm not going to pick her up. But the next book I read is Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. I gave this book, on Goodreads, I've given it 4 stars, but I really gave it like 3.5. But it's leaning 4, so take that as you will. This is a fiction contemporary romance, and I think the main trope was like college romance, enemies to friends to lovers, and I read this book physically, and it's the only book that I read that I actually own. So y'all know I'm a sucker for Nigerian authors. Like, if I hear the word Nigerian author, like, something inside of me just warms up. Like, right now, this felt a joy like overtake me just thinking about reading Nigerian authors, because I just feel so seen when I read works from them. And girl, my hair looks a mess. I didn't really straighten it that well, so you're going to ignore the fact that she's bunching up, y'all. But I just love them so much. I feel so seen. I feel so loved. And this is one of the books that was in my 23 books I must read in 2023 video. It was a 5-star anticipated book. Unfortunately, did not get 5 stars, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. And it's a book that got me back into reading, I would say, because as y'all saw, like, I had a few 5 stars before this, but they were all nonfiction, and a nonfiction 5-star versus a fiction 5-star is a big difference for me because I don't read nonfiction for enjoyment. I read nonfiction to like gain knowledge, and I read fiction purely for enjoyment. So it's like, it means different things to me when I get a 5-star in fiction versus nonfiction. So I'm really glad that I did enjoy this book. Let's talk about what the book is about. So this book is about our main character. I don't remember her name because I didn't love her. She was okay. But our main character, she is in college, and she has a like radio show podcast sort of thing where she talks about relationships. And there's another character named Malachi who is new to school, and they run into each other, have a very brief encounter, and then she finds out that a lot of the ladies on campus are getting played by him. So she's like, oh my gosh, I'm about to put him on blast on my radio show. So she puts him on blast. Long story short, they end up having to team together. Oh, there's also some fake dating in here, forgot that. They have to team together and fake date for her radio show and also for something that he's doing. And so that's why it's like enemies to friends to lovers, because they kind of start off as like enemies, but not really. He's not her enemy. I wouldn't even call it enemies. She doesn't like him at first, but he has no bad feelings for her. So take that as you will. I guess more so like friends to lovers. I thought it was great. Like, there were a lot of pop culture references in this book, which is the #1 reason why I could not get a 5-star for me. I'm not a big fan of pop culture references, and there were way too many. Like, every few pages there was one. Like, and I think it took away from the story, and also took away from how timeless the story could have been. But I loved Malachi. Oh my god, I'm getting like butterflies in my chest. Like, I don't even annotate books. There are parts where I just wanted to like highlight in pink. I was like, oh my god, he's so perfect. Like, the last half of the book really saved this book for me, because at first it was sitting in 3-star territory. I think the last like 40, 30, somewhere in that range percentage is what really gave it that 4-star for me. It was Malachi by himself who made it happen. I loved him. I don't know how his name is Malachi and he's Yoruba. I've never heard of a Yoruba person named Malachi. I guess I'm stupid. That's his English name. Duh, my name's Isabella. But I just thought he was so amazing. He was so perfect. I loved him. I also loved the main character's best friend. I think her best friend's name was Simi. I loved her because she was like independent and bougie and just great. And yeah, I think the main character, or heroine, was actually my least favorite character. Not gonna lie to you. Some of her inner dialogue kind of annoyed me. But I enjoyed this book, and I think if you want like a college romance and a fake dating book that's not cringe, I'd recommend. I usually don't like fake dating because I think it's so unrealistic, but I think it was the right age for fake dating because they're in college. They're not like grown adults fake dating, like, what are you doing? So I think they were a good age to be fake dating, and it was for a good reason. So this is a good one, and it's been talked about all the time, and I actually would recommend it. And the last book I read is Why We Fly by Kimberly Jones and Gilly Siegel. I gave this book 2.5 stars. On Goodreads, I put it at 3. I was really teetering between 2 and 3 the whole time, but I didn't hate this book, so I gave it a 3 on Goodreads. But if Goodreads allowed half stars, it would be 2.5. This is a fiction YA contemporary, and I read it via ebook. This book is about 2 seniors in high school. One is black, one is Jewish, and they are best friends, and they're also on the cheerleading squad. And this is set during the time that, you know what's crazy? Every time I need to remember a name or a word, it just blanks. Because I can see this person's face in my head, but I cannot think about his name. The football player who took a knee. This is set during the time that he took a knee. And this is taking place in the book. There's a famous football player who takes a knee, and people are like, you know, speaking against him. He loses his contract for a year. And in a show of solidarity, they decide to, like, the cheerleading team decides to take a knee in support of him. And even though they all decide to do it, only our black character, Chanel, gets in trouble. No one else gets in trouble. And obviously that was messed up. She gets a 9-day suspension. Her dad is like, you know, having to figure out how to get off her records, blah, 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 because she's trying to apply to college. And I think this book had a lot of potential, but I think it had poor execution. For one, I didn't like the characters. Chanel, our black character, I absolutely did not like. She was supposed to be best friends with the white girl, Eleanor, and she was a horrible friend. You could tell she did not like her best friend. And then when the situation went down with her getting suspended, she's the only get suspended, she like takes it out on her best friend. I understand like being a black person being upset that your own one gets suspended, because they definitely made an example of her, and it was very racist to only have the one black girl get suspended and no one else get suspended. Like, that was definitely wrong. But she addressed all of her anger at her best friend, and I didn't like. it wasn't her best friend's fault. You know what I mean? And also, it was just, I did not like the characters at all. And then also, with her getting suspended, that could have been such a good way to like include, you know, like a trial involve like the NAACP and just make more out of the story and make it more, I don't know, like groundbreaking. The best thing about the story was just the cheerleading references. I've never done cheer, but I like absolutely love competitive cheer. I'm always watching cheer shows. Like if there's anything I wish I could have done in life, it would have been like gymnastics and cheerleading. Like I wish I would have been allowed to do that when I was younger. But that was the best thing about this book. It's a shame. Great idea, great cover, poor execution. Alright, so those are the 9 books that I read last month in February. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know what was your favorite book of February. I definitely want to, you know, see if it's on my TBR. It probably is because I have 705 books on my TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed and stay tuned for my next one. I love y'all so much and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.